Genesis chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, bore him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abraham, Behold now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing. I pray you, go unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. Now, why was this so? This was so because of what already happened in the spiritual realm. Now Sarah, the first wife, is the New Testament. Sorry, not the Old Testament. Sarah is the New Testament, and Hagar is the Old Testament. Sarah is the spiritual realm, is the church. Hagar is the physical realm. So Abraham here takes the position of God. It means that in the beginning was Abraham, and this Abraham had the spiritual realm and the physical realm. But remember that all things come from the Word, and without the Word there is nothing which is made. All that can be made without the Word. Don't forget that all things of the law were a shadow of things to come, not the very images, but just shadow of things which were to come. Therefore, Abraham represents God. If Abraham is God, then in the beginning God had his spiritual church coming. However, for that church to come, the physical church, which is of the Old Testament, had to come first, and it had to delay. That's why Sarai delayed to give birth. Why? Because the New Testament, the side of the spiritual word, had to take time to come to give birth to the church. The church of the New Testament had to first wait for the church of the physical or the Old Testament to come. Before God calls you into salvation, you always first get exposed to the physical knowledge. Why? Because when He comes, He's going to teach you His kingdom, which is spiritual, the one of heaven. And for you to understand it, He is going to liken it to what you have in physical. Therefore, there is a need of you first going through what is physical for you to understand what is coming in spiritual. So when He comes in a spiritual manner, He has not brought anything new. No. Everything He has brought, you already have, because there is nothing new under the sun. We saw in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 15 that God seeks for that which has passed. That which was is now, and it shall be. God just requires. It's like a river just rotating, providing the something in different beauties or in different glories. Therefore, what happened to Abraham, Sarai, and Hagar also happened in your life. Oh, is also still happening in your life. And it's what has to happen always in your life as a believer. Before you get the revelation of what you have in physical, you always treasure what you have in physical. But when God gives you the spiritual version of what you have in physical, you will start despising what you have. Now, that's why after Abraham getting Hagar, and Hagar producing that first born, and also Sarah produces Isaac, Sarah started despising Hagar. Why? Because before it was a big deal when Hagar, this physical one, was the one taking over. But after you knowing that I press my bound above my house, because the sun is above the earth, because God reigns from above, sits above every creature. So after you getting the spiritual meaning, then you start despising what is physical. After you knowing that the food you eat every day is not the real food, but you're required to eat every day, which is spiritual. Remember, the day is any act of light. We call it a day because God called light day. So any act of light you do, we call it a day. Be it giving, be it praying, be it thanking, as long as it's in the image of God, we call that a day. You see how everything is in one line. So when you get the physical day, then you kill it and you get a spiritual day of it. You will start despising the physical one. When you get to know that, oh, we bathe, take bath every day, because in the spirit we have to turn into God's image. In every spiritual day, if it's giving, we have to turn away from evil giving to godly giving. If it's reading the Bible, we have to turn away from evil reading to godly reading. If it's serving God, we have to turn away from evil ways of serving God to the required way of serving God, as the Bible does what? As the Bible commands us. If you start getting those revelations of the Spirit, then you will start despising these physical things you have been treasuring. That's why Sarah did so. So let's go back to our story. Sarai and Abraham. Now Abraham, being God, reflecting God, Sarah reflecting you of New Testament, then Hagar representing the Old Testament. The handmaid, why did Sarah request the handmaid to give birth? Because in the spirit, Jesus, who is spiritual, had the maid of the word, which is physical. The New Testament is older than the Old Testament, because whatsoever happens in the Old Testament or in the physical realm comes from the spiritual realm. Therefore, the New Testament requested that its handmaid, the Old Testament, comes out first, and after it would also come last. Now, being last to appear doesn't mean that it was the last to be formulated. No, and not at all. You see that John the Baptist refuses to baptize Jesus And Jesus tells him that they must fulfill all righteousness. Why? Because this physical one, yes, the latter one is older than the first one. Jesus is older than John. So John the Baptist respects him. However, they have to fulfill righteousness. Which righteousness? When the spiritual realm comes, the physical realm submits, all hands over to the spiritual realm. The baptism of water hands over to the spiritual realm. Let us say the baptism of water tithes to the spiritual realm. Like it's written that, bring all tithes so that there may be food in my Father's house. You bring what is physical, and God will change that to get for you spiritual food. That's why Jesus comes with the gospel of the kingdom of God, teaching physical things by likening them by likening them to the spiritual realm, such that you get what to eat. Why does he liken them? Because for you to understand the spiritual realm, you need, let us say, a softener. For you to absorb nutrients from the food, that food will be needed to